am the first generation lawyer in my family. How it has been for them to become an arbitrator and what are the things that we should do as an arbitrator. I just felt like I'm in part of heaven, in this huge campus.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Law in Action. I am Arya Agrawal, a student of Placement Committee at Christ deemed to be University Pune Lavasa campus. Today, I have the immense pleasure of speaking with Miss Treesa Bejoy, who is the CEO and founder of ATB Legal and has a remarkable leader in the field of arbitration and dispute resolution. I welcome you, Asha ma'am.
Thank you very much, Arya. It's a pleasure to be with you.
To begin off, ma'am, could you share the pivotal moments or experiences that led you begin your journey in the field of arbitration and eventually founding ATB Legal?
Yeah, so going back to why did I choose arbitration, I would say in 2012, while I was working as an in-house for a UAE-based group in Cochin, Kerala, India, I had the opportunity of handling a dispute within the organization that had an arbitration clause. So the entity is a production company, and this was basically a contract with one of the service providers, and essentially the service provider has broken the terms of the contract, and this then evolved into a dispute for which an arbitration clause had to be invoked. So that was the first exposure for me to international arbitration. I wouldn't say international arbitration, arbitration as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So how it happened is I then started preparing the documentation, the pleadings from complainants, the claimant side, and sitting judge of the High Court was appointed as the sole arbitrator in that proceeding. And arbitration hearings were in mutually convenient locations. So I saw a lot of attractive features in arbitration as compared to conventional litigation. For example, there is certainty of procedure because the procedure is essentially drawn by the arbitrator in consensus with the parties. That is one of the main advantages of arbitration. The second thing that I could find is the certainty in terms of the time limit within which the arbitration award is issued. In this case, we've managed to get the award issued in a matter of less than a year. And what interested me even more is the fact that once we had the arbitration award, before even we start to execute the arbitration award, the other party came for a settlement. And the reason for that is there is only very limited opportunity to challenge an arbitration award. So all of this combined, I saw that as a fantastic alternative dispute resolution mechanism, which would help businesses to focus more on their core area, whereas the disputes could be resolved in a better, more practical and efficient manner. So then I started exploring more on what are the things that I would need to develop as arbitration counsel and eventually mature enough to become an arbitrator. So when I moved on to the private practice in Chennai, initially, that was around 2013-14, I took up the position as the practice head for alternative dispute resolution in that particular practice. And I started investing a lot of time in researching, reading, and developing my knowledge and exposure in arbitration. I also subscribed to certification courses conducted by the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, UK. And I currently am a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. These certification courses, along with the real hands-on experience of handling arbitrations in the commercial disputes, really opened up a whole new stream of alternative dispute resolution and its potential to me. So that was actually what led me currently to become an arbitration counsel, an arbitrator, and a certified mediator. So then, a plethora of opportunities evolved for me in terms of how disputes can be managed and resolved. So when I started my practice, ATB Legal, I wanted to specifically dedicate resources for arbitration because I could see that the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms are indeed evolving and it has been highly recognized and rewarded and received by the industry. So in ATB Legal, we have a dedicated international commercial arbitration practice We conduct arbitrations that are under the prominent arbitral institutes such as ICC. We have Dubai Arbitration Center disputes. So that that is what we do in ATB Legal. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I still believe that alternative dispute resolution mechanisms has got a great way of dealing with disputes, and it is definitely, especially when it comes to disputes where the parties want a neutral third party to make the decision. And that is the advantage that the arbitration provides, especially in international commercial disputes. The parties would be from multiple jurisdictions. So the parties would not be comfortable in subjecting to a particular court's jurisdiction because they would be completely unaware about the complexities of that particular jurisdiction. And in such cases, arbitration becomes a very efficient alternative because arbitration provides enough procedural flexibility, neutrality, independence of the arbitrators, and certainty in terms of the issuance of the arbitration award.
The thought was very insightful, ma'am. As we know, the alternative dispute resolution mechanism is evolving now. And also, ma'am, as an accredited arbitrator being recognized in internationally, how do you see the role of arbitrator in UAE and other regions?
Arbitrators, as I told you, because arbitration is evolving as an emerging alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, arbitrators has got a key role to play in that. It is the quality of the arbitrators, essentially, especially arbitrators has to be independent. They have to dedicate sufficient time in terms of managing the case, reviewing the case files, understanding the nuances in the process, and then in the end, passing a reasonable, recent award which is enforceable. So that is where we are trying to get to. So that requires an arbitrator's 100% sincere involvement in the process. Because at the end of the day, an arbitration award can be challenged only on very limited grounds of arbitrator bias or public policy or lack of valid arbitration agreement. Those are the very few grounds on which an arbitration award can be challenged. Of course, it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and therefore, considering the finality of an arbitration award, an arbitrator is taking up a very serious responsibility and a role. So arbitrators needs professional training. They should have handled multiple cases so that they have that expertise to understand the case, do the case management in a proper way, eventually leading to an arbitration award that is enforceable.
That's great, ma'am. Also, ma'am, what in your opinion, we being the young legal professionals, should have the skills and attributes that would help us to succeed in the field of international commercial arbitration?
Yes. So, as students of international commercial arbitration, what I would encourage the students to do is start with basics. Arbitration, although is an alternative dispute resolution, it is very much rooted on the core advocacy principles. So, as a student, you should have the best of the advocacy skills, and that's where most of your efforts should be spent. When I say advocacy, advocacy in terms of written advocacy, you should have the ability to draft proper pleadings. Because if you're pleading, for example, in arbitration, you start your case with a statement of case. That is the opening document that you submit. Before that, varies from sender to sender. You can have something called an arbitration request, but core pleadings are the statement of case, the statement of defense, and the rejoinder. And the arbitrator is essentially going to understand the case by looking at what documentation you are submitting to the arbitrator. So you need to produce this information in a precise and in a clear manner so that there is no clutter. And the arbitration is it's straight away directed to the core issue to be decided in an arbitration. So there comes the importance of perfect drafting skills, perfect analytical skills. That is something, again, you have to have the skill to read through the documents, understand the underlying legal issue, analyze it from a legal point of view, and how are you going to present that logical way so that the arbitrator is not confused or perplexed in the end by looking at the document. So it is about analytical still. You still also need the skill to have a proper presentation skills. Because many a times the arbitration would eventually lead to something called an oral hearing, where you may also have to examine the witnesses. That is another area where a budding lawyer should invest a lot of time in doing the right representations, in presenting the case in a proper manner so that the arbitrator is able to follow you on what your case is. Basically, it's all about your storyline. How well thorough are you with your storyline so that you're making it as simple as a story to an arbitrator so that the arbitrator is, yes, is with you in terms of what your case is all about. Also, last but not least, I would also encourage youngsters to get your trial skills in place. You should see real trial cases so that how the witnesses are examined, because trial in itself is very, very important in arbitration, because without trial, you would not be able to establish a fact or a true state of a fact in a trial. So you need to have the examination skills. You should know what a cross-examination is and how to conduct a proper cross-examination. What are the witnesses to be produced in a proceeding? So all of the skills, I would say, it's very, very essential to become a successful arbitration counsel and eventually as an arbitrator, because as an arbitrator, when you sit on that chair, you would expect that your counsel will lead you through all of this. So that is from a skills perspective, but on a knowledge acquisition, start reading all the leading books. There are a few books that I would recommend. You can read Redfern and Hunter. It's an excellent resource for theoretical or conceptual understanding about arbitration. And then there are other books written by leading professors like Gary Bond. He has written several series on international commercial arbitration. Get yourself aligned with the rules of most prominent arbitral institutes such as ICC, SIAC, we have Dubai Arbitration Center. So there are prominent like Hong Kong Arbitration Center, London Court of Arbitration. So they come up with robust rules which are kept updated on a regular basis. So getting yourself familiarized with these rules, and then also following these organizations such as the ICC, getting acquainted with young organization wings. Like ICC has ICC YAF, which is specifically for professionals less than 40 years on a fantastic networking opportunity, and also an opportunity for them to understand how this space of the law is evolving. So I would say I can go on forever. So it's a lot of skills that you need to really work on, but it all starts with the right mindset to grab the skills to be a successful lawyer and an arbitrator.
It will definitely benefit the young legal professionals, and after listening to this, I feel everybody would want to be part of the ADR mechanisms.
Thank
And
you.
ma'am, the next question, as an independent arbitrator and a certified mediator empaneled with various regulatory bodies and authorities, how has your journey been?
Yeah, so to succeed as an arbitration counsel and an arbitrator, I would say it is a totally different hat that you wear when you sit as an arbitrator. Of course, I take that responsibility very seriously because of the obvious reason that there are very limited grounds on which an arbitration award can be challenged. Now, so I ensured that I grabbed almost all the possible training to become the best arbitrator in the town, starting with getting training from the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UK. I also recently had an opportunity to be selected for an advanced training in international commercial arbitration by the ICC Academy, Advanced Academy on International Commercial Arbitration. And I also, wherever there is an opportunity for me to get acquainted with senior arbitrators, I go talk to them and get insights on how it has been for them to become an arbitrator and what are the things that we should do as an arbitrator. So there is actually a lot of things that I've done in terms of becoming me as a better arbitrator, because at the end of the day, arbitrate to act as an arbitrator and to make a decision in a dispute, it's a serious responsibility, and I take it very seriously.
Also, ma'am, in your experience, what challenges do women face in the leadership role in the legal professions, and what advice do you offer aspiring female lawyers?
So, I would just look on me and I would say there are no challenges for women practitioners to come up in the legal practice. I can say that very confidently because I come from a family where there is no lawyers. I am the first generation lawyer in my family. And yet, I reached where I am today. So I think what really plays well is your dedication, enthusiasm, and your hard work. So if you're willing to do all of this, then I'm sure definitely there is space for women lawyers, especially the world needs that. And if you look at prominent arbitral institutes, there is specific segment for women practitioners, and I've seen that it's compared to olden times, the opportunities are far better. And especially with hybrid model hearings coming up, like for example, in most of the international arbitrations, hearings happen virtually. You don't have to travel anywhere. If you have a fantastic internet connection, a good internet connection, and a computer, and good online platform, you're as good as to go and do the arbitration hearings. In my office, I have done multiple arbitration hearings online because the arbitrator could be somewhere in the UK, my clients could be sitting somewhere in Europe, and the tribunal secretary could be somewhere else. So, but I did not find that any challenge at all. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, if you are really inclined in becoming an arbitration practitioner, then your gender would not matter. It is how good you are in your profession that only matters.
That is completely true, ma'am. Every person who needs to succeed in their life has to be dedicated.
Yep.
Finally, ma'am, how did your experience at Christ deemed to be University Pune Lavasa been like?
Oh, it is a wonderful experience. And the campus sort of took me on a surprise. I just felt like I'm in part of heaven, in this huge campus. There are lots of greenery. I could even see birds chirping. So it was indeed a very, very nice experience. That's to talk about the infrastructure. And the colleagues, the professors, and everybody has been extremely nice. And that is the reason why I am sitting here today and doing this presentation, because of the kind support of everybody in coordinating everything. Although I practice in UAE, I managed to come and do this talk because that's how I felt that I've been treated. So I think this university is indeed a fantastic place for students. It's the right ecosystem, right motivation, right initiatives, and I recommend Lavasa Christ Campus to all of the aspiring law graduates.
Thank you so much, Asha ma'am, for sharing your invaluable sights, experiences, and guidance. I am sure our listeners, especially students and our young legal professionals, will find the conversation truly inspiring.
Yes, indeed. And it's been a pleasure being in this session. Thank you very much, Arya. And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Christ Lavasa, for this opportunity.